Welcome everyone. Today we'll have a very interesting and also exciting build to show you guys about the Barbarian in Diablo 4 beta. So let's have a look at the replay over here. So this is the monster that is elite. So after knocking back the monster, let's tell you how much this character hit. So this is 25,000 damage, and this is without critical hitting, and this is without overpower. And this skill can do both as well. So this can easily go over 50,000 if this critted or did overpower. So let me just show you guys again. It's actually really fun. So one of the chat is like, this skill hit so hard it broke the game and made the monster drop a legendary. It's actually really fun, right? I was like, wow. And if you look closely, this skill is also AOE. So if you have a look, Upheaval is also AOE. And yeah, it hits in a cone and it does really good damage, right? And we can see 25,000 on this replay. Now, in case you guys are wondering why I'm not testing on the boss, because this is actually not my build. This was actually shared on Reddit by Totally106. So big thank you, and also credits to him for sharing this build. Unfortunately guys, the beta is not available during the time of recording, so I can't test it in the game for you guys, and I might not have all the right codex. So big thank you for him for sharing this one, and also my viewers for letting me know. And if you guys do see builds like this, let me know. So what we do is, we have notes and also detailed skill perks of how to make this possible if you want to try this in beta. I'll also give you guys some advice on weapons and also gear stats and also choices of codex. So let's get into the build. What we'll do is, let's come over to the skill tree to understand how it is built. And how I understood the build is, I can see the skills that is available and we can look into the ideas behind it. I'll give you guys a variation of the build depending on what you have and what you don't have with the codex or the legendaries. Now coming over to the skill tree, I had a lot of tips about speaking a little slowly. I do want to speak slower to make it more clear, so I do apologize for speaking too fast because I got too excited. So as for the skills, for the basic skill, we want to go into 1 point into bash, and then going with the bash upgrades. It is actually really good to have bash for this build, because you want to stun enemies and this allows you to deal overpower and also fortify. So how overpower works is, we have 3% chance of overpower, but this particular perk allows us to have a 100% overpower when you critical strike 4 times. It might not seem a lot, but once you get enough critical chance, this can happen a lot. And overpower deals bonus damage on your HP and also fortify life. This means you can deal tremendous damage on top of critical strike damage. So bash will stun enemies, and then when you stun enemies, you gain fortify life, which makes you much more durable. And after critical striking 4 times, you actually get overpower that hits really hard. And the idea is, you want to hit a lot with bash. I'll show you guys why very soon. So coming to the core skill, this will be the skill of choice, Upheaval. Upheaval initially will do a percentage of weapon damage, and its upgrades have a chance to stun enemies again. So notice this build have a lot of control, and this wants you to stun enemies to deal bonus damage. And finally, when you cast spell and direct damage to enemies that is not Upheaval, you will gain bonus damage to Upheaval up to 80%, and this is really powerful. So if we look at the replays, at the start of the fight, notice that the Upheaval over here is on 10 stacks. That means this is doing 180% more damage. This is going to be amazing, right? Now moving over to the defensive section, you can see our friend here, he perked into the shouts. So he perked into the challenging shout, he also perked into ground stomp. Ground stomp to give you another method of stunning enemies and also deal a little bit of damage. As for the challenging shout, it is a defensive spell which allows you to have more bonus health. And when you have higher health, you can also deal more damage with overpower, because it's based on your health and also fortify life. Now over here, I could also perk into other perks, but I don't think it's that strong, but we can definitely perk into the Fury. But I didn't perk into this, I went into the passives for more damage. Of course, it is up to you how you perk it. At the same time, if you find yourself to be spawning enemies a lot, you don't have to perk into the ground stomp, maybe perk into Iron Skin if you find yourself a little weaker and need defensive spells, or maybe perk into the Rally Cry for the unstoppable and also more fortified life. So this definitely works. So this is the variation I thought about. And of course, we adjust the points over here by taking some passives. So I'll give you guys a few variations, and this way you can be defensive, offensive, and also utility. I'll try to speak a little slower. Now, so we keep going, this comes to the interesting part of the build. I did perk into a lot of points into Warcry, and this doesn't have to be the case, just so you guys know. If you really want to highest damage, you can perk it this way, and then you can also perk into other stuns and also other passives as well. So just keep in mind, I perked more into Warcry, but it doesn't have to be this way. The variation here is 1 point into Warcry, and then its upgrades. So here, Warcry grants you Berserk means when you Warcry, you gain a bonus damage from Berserk, which is actually really good. On top of that, you also gain the fortified life again, and this allows you overpower to do more damage. Yes, you can also get 30% bonus damage when you have more than 6 enemies around you, but it's too idealistic, right? It's hard to get all 6 enemies, especially against the boss. So it's better to be more fortified, more durable, and also deal overpower damage, because you're guaranteed to overpower at the 100% chance after 4 critical strike. You also fortify normally with 3%. Now over here we also have skill perk into Kick. Kick is going to be the stabilizer and also the enabler for the build. You don't have to go with Kick, but I think it's pretty fun. So you'll be kicking enemies and knocking them back, and the upgrades makes them vulnerable. This is a big highlight. Vulnerable enemies take more damage, at least 20 or even 30% more damage, depending on your items and also your passives. And finally, kicking enemies will be knocked down for 2 seconds, which allows you to control them and keep them in place and then one-shot them. Now you can see our build doesn't have that many actives, so I will be talking about the positives and also a little disadvantage of the build very soon with you guys. As we keep going, you can see some very good offensive and also defensive passives. Pit Fighter will give you plus 9% damage and defensiveness against distance enemies. And here, because enemies are stunned and also they are controlled, you deal 9% more damage. So those passive will give you more percentage of damage amplifier and make you hit harder. And finally, we don't have any points into ultimate. This is because we don't need any ultimate. We hit very hard. Now just to be honest guys, if you want a bit of burst damage, definitely perk into the Core of Engine. So what I mean by that is, I'll give you guys a variation. You can reduce 1 passive point and get the Core of Engine, and then maybe you can reduce the Ground Stop into Core of Engine. Core of Engine is very good by itself because it does everything. It's really good. So I'll give you guys a variation of the build very soon, but I want to follow the exact guide over here on our friend on Reddit, and I'll share the variation of my build so you can try different things out. Now, because we don't have his exact item set, over here we'll be looking into the Codex, and then I'll show you guys what are the preferred stats and also socketing for your item set. So here we'll focus on offensive item stats. So one of the bigger focus is going to be aspect of pummeling. This means you deal 40% more damage against stun enemies. It is not available in the first zone, but legendaries can still drop this. So if you extract this from the legendary aspects and then you imprint this on a 2-handed weapon, this will be the highlight. Similarly, if you can imprint this particular passive aspect of retribution onto a 2-handed weapon on your other 2 hand, this will allow you to deal more damage. And those damage will be doubled, I believe. So 40 become 80% and 30 becomes 60%. Is that right? Or are they still the same? I think it's double. Yeah, I think it is double because my Thorn was over 56% Thorn for my Thorn build. So those will be doubled if you imprint them on the 2-handed weapon. And this will make you a godlike stunning machine and kills enemies when they're stunned, which will be amazing. So those will be the 2 highlights. Now over here we do have aspect of the Ancestral Echoes. If you're lucky enough to get this one, this makes your Upheaval super fast or super good with the chance of summoning Ancients. And this will be one of the buddies from Core of Engines. And I do recommend trying Core of Engine in the build if you want the variation. We'll talk about those builds as well. And of course you have a few of the abilities that boost your core skill even more. Your core skill will have increased damage up to 24% when you have high resource, which is always the case when you start off, because you will be doing normal attack a lot. And again, normal attack increases your core skill by 50% damage. This is massive. So you can have a choice of putting those 2 offensive on the 2-handed, or put the stun ones on the 2-handed. Depends how often you stun enemies. Now one defensive codex I really recommend looking into is that aspect of might. Because you'll be basic attack with bash a lot, 20% damage reduction is actually really good. Now, because the build itself is very flexible, you can pick any defensive and also utility codex as you find them in the game. Unfortunately, in the first zone, we can't get any offensives for the Barbarian. And that is in terms of the codex, of course. So you have to get a little lucky with any of those, codex from legendary jobs. And if you don't have any, the build could still work. You might not hit as hard as a friend over here, maybe not 25,000. You might hit like 10,000 or 15,000 without those items. Now, briefly talking about the choices of gear stats. So you want the bonus damage to close enemies, vulnerable enemies, and also crowd control enemies for bonus damage. You also really want to focus on critical chance, because critical chance allows you to deal overpower after 4 crits, so this is more important than the critical damage. In terms of socketing, you have a high critical chance because of your build, then you want critical damage when enemies are controlled, so this is one of the gems you can socket into the weapon. For the armors, I recommend going for Thorn, or you can go maximum life. Actually go for maximum life, because, you know why? Because if you go for maximal life 5%, you also gain more damage for overpower. because it's based on your maximum life and fortified life. I forgot about that. And for the socketing of the amulets, one of my viewers saying if you don't have any sockets, it's also good because you get more stats with FX. But if you have sockets, I recommend socketing the lowest resistance. If my fire resistance is 10 and cold is 50 or 40, I'll socket in fire resistance to balance this out. Now, before we get back into the combos and also skill combinations, how you rotate the skills, I want to quickly have a quick review of this build with you guys. The fun part about the build is that, it's a one-hitter. Everyone likes a one-hitter that hits big numbers, right? Especially in beta, you get to test it out. It is great for farming elites, because elite monsters can be stunned and they drop a lot of rare items. So if you considering this method in endgame, if you have the items and also the build, this can be good for farming elites. I'm not sure about bosses. I'm not sure. I haven't noticed if bosses can be stunned in terms of the fights in the dungeons. So let me know, guys. If you can't stun the bosses, you lose a lot of damage. And of course, the disadvantage of the build is we don't know how the endgame Paragon levels and also skills will affect the build. So the build has a little bit less flexibility and less AOE in terms of, choices of spells. And I have plans. I'll give you guys variation of the builds so you can perk into ultimate and also try things out for yourself. And finally, let's come over to the combination of skills, rotations, and also, the showcase of the combination. What you're going to see is you want to normal attack a lot with bash. So this way, after 4 critical chance with bash, you also do overpower, which is really good. If you time this correctly and make overpower onto your upheaval, this can easily do 40,000 damage and maybe even 50,000 if you quit. And similarly, you want to stun enemies. Multiple ways to stun enemies. You can do ground stomp, you can do bash, you can kick enemies onto the wall and knock them down. And this will count for your bonus damage as well. So notice our friend here, he is bashing and he started with 10 stacks of upheaval. That means he already attacked 10 times with his bash. And he engaged the enemy, and then he first kick enemies onto a ledge or maybe onto the wall. And the kick distance is actually pretty high, so pretty far, right? You can see where he kicked the monster onto the wall. Once the monster is knocked down for 2 seconds, he will cast his shout. So I believe the shout over here is going to be the war cry shout, which gives you bonus damage. And also, if you go with fortified life, and this gives you more overpower damage, right? And after you casting the shout, if you happen to have other abilities that increase your power, make sure you cast them. And then you hit the monster. And at the same time, notice that it is an AOE range attack. So after casting out his shouts, he hit the monster. He did not quit. He didn't get overpower. And that's already 25,000 damage. So not bad, right? And he's so hard he got a legendary. I'll just show you guys the whole combo again. It's really fun, right? Now, if you're fighting normal mobs and group of monsters, you can of course use your challenging taunt to be a little more defensive. And if you do replace a skill like my other variation, you can use Call of Ancients to clear monsters very fast with a cooldown. And of course, you can rotate the skills a little bit because you don't have to have ground stomp. Notice that he didn't use ground stomp, but ground stomp will provide you with 100% stun, and this can be really good against group of enemies. So in terms of AOE range, you can see the radius of the upheaval. It is a cone about like this much. So this is the drawback of the spell, of course. Now, if you guys do have a good build, or if you found a good build and want me to review it and share with everyone on YouTube, definitely let me know on Discord. And the best way to get to me will be messaging me directly on Discord after joining the server. Now, hopefully you guys enjoyed my guide for Diablo 4, and we will be having our Discord channel, and our Discord channel is ready for Diablo 4. So if you guys want to join us for sharing builds, strategies, tips, guides, Diablo 4 news, memes, funny stuff, lore, we will look into Diablo 4 claims and also claim wars for PvP, and also looking for group for world boss. So I have the invites available for you guys in the description below and also the comments. Make sure you have a look and join us on Diablo 4. We're pretty mature gamers, we're very friendly. We currently have a group for Genshin Impact players, Tower of Fantasy, Lost Ark, Dota 2, TFT for League of Legends, and also Yu-Gi-Oh! As well Ling and also Arknights. So make sure you guys join us and say hi and be friendly with everyone. And stay a while and listen. Now, before you go, and if you guys didn't know, we have a new YouTube channel. So I just started a YouTube channel with my girlfriend yesterday, and you can see this is only 12 hours old, this YouTube channel. And if you guys haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and check out the behind the scenes and also fun clips and also more stories about us. And then you get to know me a little more personally instead of just reading the news and also the games, right? So I want to share a little bit more with you guys. So make sure you check this channel out if you're interested about Matt and also Uni. She's really funny too, and she's really shy. So I want to give her a surprise and do a shout out for the new channel to get some subscribers. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time.